you all doing? Um, Hoping everything finds you doing well and all that other good stuff. I had a pretty interesting week this week. Oh boy, I tell you. Mm. I had to take my wife to the dentist, which was her first time. Don't ask me why it's taking me so long to get her to the dentist. I'm not even going to answer that question. But I had a pretty good work week. Was looking forward to coming home. Been out, got some groceries. About to go on the grill tomorrow and enjoy this 3 day weekend. Um, Been having a little trouble with my podcast. Seems like whenever I get on, uh, somehow, some reason the sound isn't right. I'm wondering if it's my internet or whatever. But I'm not going to stop. I'm gonna still do my podcast and whatever. What I wanted to talk about last week was black fatigue and why that has become such a viral term lately. You know, I guess you could say I had viral fatigue long before it became a term. Uh, I've always been a type of person who understands that be we black, white, whatever, that we're all made in the image of God, and that God created us one and all, and that the only differences between us is the amount of melanin in our skin. But a lot of people they want to make these, they want to sharpen the boundaries between the cultures and the races and everything. But I'm not one of those type of people. Of course, I get called the names and everything, but that's not going to stop me. But I just wanted to say that I understand black fatigue. I know some people say, well, you shouldn't call it black fatigue, but call it black liberal fatigue. Hey, I just call it straight up black fatigue because I am tired of people trying to look at me as if I am part of a monolith, like I'm part of the Borg or something like that. We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. You got to think like the rest of us. Because your skin color matches ours, so you got to think like we do. And the thing that bothers me the most is the advocates. I call them the apostles of blackness. They don't want to leave well enough alone. If somebody doesn't follow their philosophy, they want to, they feel threatened. They take it personal. It's almost like an insult that how can you be black and not think like the rest of us? But one thing I let people know is that I may be black, but I'm also an individual, and I have my own dreams and aspirations that I want to acquire, separate from being part of a collective think tank. I like to think for myself. I don't like people doing the thinking for me. I'd rather, you know, achieve my own goals and take whatever take whatever I can from the environment and come to my own conclusions. And a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand you thinking for yourself. They don't understand you being an individual, because they think that you being an individual, you're a runaway slave, which is what I am. Yes, and I wholeheartedly accept that term. Yes, I am a runaway slave. I'm a person who has escaped the plantation. I am no longer part of the plantation. So, you can call me all the names you want to and everything. But when I look at people and they always want to follow along the lines, well, we're black and, the police are always after us and that, because we're black, we don't get the chances that white people do when they get pulled over by the police and we're being held back because of our skin color. And I tell people, hey, look, I was when I first started first grade. I started in 1974, and this was 5 years before the Department of Education was implemented, and I was reading on a third grade reading level in the first grade in 1974. So when people say that, the white people don't want us to achieve anything or whatever, I was already achieving before I got into the first grade. So when people uh, when people tell me you need to read history, you need to do this and everything, I'm like, hey, I know how to read. I already know how to read. I know about history. I don't know every aspect and every detail about history, but hey, you know. But my thing is, have you read about history? Because a lot of times when you hear these people talk, they don't know what they're talking about. I can achieve anything that any white person can. I can achieve anything. And the school I went to, when I was reading on a third grade reading level in the first grade, it was basically half black, half white, and I was out reading not only the black students, but I was out reading the white students as well. So it misses me when people talk about, white men are holding you back. The white man can't hold you back. The only reason why is the only reason why a white person can hold you back is because of your mode of thinking, your mentality. You think that, if I try to get out there, the white people are just going to push me back, you know. But we all had our adversities that we had to come through. Everybody had adversity, even the white folks. Everybody, I've gotten my share of adversity from black people more than anybody. When they talk about how my voice sounds, how I look, how I dress, how I walk. You don't see it now, but when I was a kid, my hair used to grow thick and nappy. They used to talk about that. And these were black folks, and I grew up in the '70s and the '80s, and the people who gave me the most trouble in my life were black people. Talking about my skin color, everything like that. And before I go on and make it sound like that I was an innocent victim or anything, I used to do the same thing too. It's not something that I'm proud of, something I'm very ashamed of when I did it as well. So but I can achieve anything that any white person in this country can achieve, but we're all going to have our adversity. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think, it's a victimhood mentality, and it makes people think that, hey, the reason why I can't achieve it, well, I'll put it like this: it's a lack of innovation, it's a lack of perseverance. You sit there, you make an excuse, say, well, if I try this, the white man's just going to hold me back. Now, white man hasn't held me back from anything. I can go to any hotel, go to any restaurant, whatever. I've never had white people tell me, oh, you can't achieve this, you can't achieve that. But I tell you one thing, I've had a lot of black people tell me that. Matter of fact, when I was a child growing up, the people who were more encouraging towards me were white folks, you know. And it's hard for me to hear all the stories about injustice and everything, and we being held back and whatever, but we hold each other back. I hear people talk about, well, just no justice, no peace. Well, what about the injustice that is brought against you by your fellow black people? A lot of people don't think about that. They'll talk about no justice, no peace, but then they'll turn around and commit an act of injustice against people who look just like them. But the only thing they're concerned about is what the white man is doing. I don't care what the white man is doing. Look, I don't care if a million white men tell me I hate you because you're black. You're not going to keep me from achieving what I want to achieve. Now, if there's something that I haven't achieved, I look at myself. I blame myself for that. You know, maybe I didn't work harder or remain diligent in a certain place or whatever. And folks, I'm just talking out of my head. I'm kind of tired tonight, but I just wanted to Just wanted to share this with you folks out there because we got so many people out there who always want to talk about, the black man this and the black man that, and they will always want to go back to slavery and say we're still traumatized by slavery. And the thing that really bothers me in all this, and I've said this before, and I'm going to continue to say it ad nauseum, the thing that bothers me the most is when people get up there, they call themselves leaders or spokespersons or whatever. They get out there, they start talking this garbage, and they talk like they talk for every single black person that lives in this country. We black people, we go through this every day. We go through this every day. Who are you talking about? Because what you're saying we go through every day, I'm not going through it every day. I don't know what you're talking about. So don't get up there and pretend you speak for me because you don't speak for me. I can speak for myself. You know, I know the experiences I've had. I'll be 57 years old in October. And, when I hear, these leaders that get up and they start talking, the white man's always keeping us down. White man's never kept me down. I've never been prevented from having a job because a white man said, no, I don't want that black man in here. No one has ever, I have never been kept out of a restaurant or a hotel room. Every time my wife and I we would go out of town and we would get hotel reservations. We've never had a person look at us and say, nah, we don't want your kind here. I've never gone into a restaurant and the owner of the restaurant look at me and say, I don't want you here. Now, if that ever happens, I'm not going to boo-hoo and cry about it because I know there are restaurants and hotels and any other places that will accept me. I'm not going to go to the government and say, hey, they wouldn't let me in because I'm black. I care less. You don't like me because I'm black? Well, then that's your problem, not mine. I don't have a problem with my skin color. You do. And that's your cross you have. That's your cross you have to bear. But I have no problem with people not liking me because I'm black because I've had black people who've had a problem with me because of who I am, so, but I just wanted to put that out there. I know I sound kind of tired and I'm just going all over the place and whatever, but, tomorrow I'm kind of excited about tomorrow. I'm supposed to be cooking on a grill. This will be the first time I cooked on a grill for me and my wife. I've cooked on a grill at other people's places and whatever, but, hey, folks, you got one life to live. Life is too short to be worried about some white man looking down on you because you're black. And those of us who are black today, we need to stop it with the excuses. We need to stop it. We want to go back to the 60s and the 50s and the days of slavery. None of us have been slaves. Not one single one of us have been slaves. And I don't know how in the world you can be traumatized by something that you did not experience. We're still traumatized by slavery. I'm not traumatized by it. And I'm pretty sure that my ancestors, the reason why I am a black American is because my ancestors were brought over here on slave ships. I'm pretty certain about that. Not unless I had, go to what's his name? The guy who does the genealogy and everything. And he says, hey, Vincent, got some news to tell you. Your ancestors were slave owners. I'll be like, okay, well, we were slave owners. But that has no bearing on me today. Whether my ancestors were slaves or whether my ancestors were slave owners, it has no bearing on me today. And this is something we need to get out of because we're using this as an excuse of why we can't get ahead, and it's basically producing a laziness in us. We're saying, well, I want somebody else to help me get ahead instead of me pulling myself up by my bootstraps and going out there and making myself productive and making myself valuable to somebody. Because like I said, I cannot point to one time where I was kept out of an establishment simply because I was black. And as a born again Christian, all this black stuff that people keep talking about, they keep pushing and whatever, I don't understand people who call themselves Christians and who are black, who are always preaching civil rights. Just preach the gospel. Preach the gospel. If you preach the gospel, that'll take care of the civil rights. And I've even heard some black preachers criticize people for saying, just preach the gospel. Well, that's what you're supposed to do. If you're a preacher, your primary duty is to preach the gospel. You preach the gospel, that'll take care of the civil rights. Loving your fellow man. That's part of the gospel. And as a black man who is a Christian, I can't look down on my white brothers or sisters. I can't look at them with a suspicious eye and say, I know he's acting kind of friendly right now, but I need to keep my eye on him because he's a white man. Folks, enemies come in all sizes, shapes, and colors. And a lot of your main enemies are going to come from those who look just like you do. So I'm just going to end this rant. Hopefully somebody gets something out of it, what I'm trying to say, but just listen to my words, try to get something out of it. I know I sound like I'm just rambling on and everything. Like I said, I'm kind of tired right now. But anyway, you all take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Have a good and blessed 3-day weekend. Keep in mind what Memorial Day is all about. This is Vincent E. Brown. I'm signing off. Until the next time, I'll see you on the rebound.